This video is brought to you by Fallen Dominion Studios. Check out their website at fallendominionstudios.com. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dice Odyssey. I'm Kaz, and today I'm going to be bringing to you a review of Crusaders, Thy Will Be Done. You kind of have to say it like that. Maybe not, but still. It's for 2 to 4 players, about 45 to 60 minutes, and for 14 up, you lead a crusade of knights to go out and do the king's bidding. You're fighting enemies, putting up buildings, actually starting banks, and trying to have the most influence in the game before King Philip realizes, uh-oh, this order of knights is getting too strong. We need to shut them down before they come back and try to take me out of position of power. It's by Tasty Minstrel Games. Seth Jaffe is the designer. I'm going to give you kind of an idea of how the game runs, and then I'm going to come back with my final thoughts. In Crusaders, Thy Will Be Done, you are a legion of knights that are going out trying to spread your influence across the land. And what you're trying to do is get the most influence by the end of the game. Set up the game board. You're going to be putting out all the different kinds of Prussian, Slavs, and Saracen tokens on the different areas that have flags on them. You're also going to place all of your building bonus tiles out there on the board. You're going to place one Prussian, one Slav token into each of their respective slots on their power meters. Now this is to determine how much action power you're going to need to actually defeat these foes, and every time you defeat them, they're going to move up by 1. You're going to put your knight in one of the starting locations that are marked. Now you're going to get your player board and all the respective buildings. You're going to lay them out on your player board. You're going to get your rondel wedges, and you're also going to get your action tokens. A normal setup, you're going to put 2 on each wedge, but depending upon which knight holy order that you choose, that may change possibly, so be on the lookout for that. Now you've got a number of knight holy orders to choose from. Each one's going to have their own variable player power represented on the tile. Just to give you a few, you have the Knights Teutonic. You may distribute action tokens either clockwise or counterclockwise. You have the Knights Templar. During setup, 2 wedges of your choice will only have 1 action token. See, so there's a setup item right there. And then once per turn, when distributing action tokens, you may place 2 onto the same wedge. The Knights of St. Lazarus. During setup, you remove 1 action token from the wedge of your choice. Upgrade 3 action wedges of your choice during setup. The Order of Montesa. During setup, in addition to your first knight, place the Black Knight figure in your starting space, and you get a +1 on travel. So you actually get an extra figure to use out on the board. You're going to distribute 2 out to each player, and you get to choose one of them to be your Holy Order of Knights. In the basic rules, you're going to have one player set up their action wedges first, and then everyone's going to follow suit and copy exactly what they're doing. And you'll have wedges such as Build, Crusade, Travel, Influence, Travel again, and Muster. Now what you're looking at is how many power actions you have on each wedge that you can actually use, okay? Now there's 2 actions that you can take on your turn. You can resolve an action or upgrade a wedge. Now, if you wanted to upgrade a wedge, you go ahead and take those power tokens off of that wedge, and then you can flip that wedge over, and now it shows that you have 2 actions that you can use, and you can distribute your power tokens accordingly, however you want to do it. So for example, we could do this travel build. Before it was just travel, but now we can not only travel, we can also build on the same turn. Now let's take a look at the different kinds of actions. For example, you could travel. Let's say we have 2 action tokens. Well, that means you can travel 2 spaces. So you would take your knight and you would move them accordingly. Once you get to enemy territory though, you're going to have to use 2 tokens to actually move through their territory. Once you've taken that action, you then, in Mancala fashion, take your action tokens and move them to the next appropriate wedges, putting 1 on each. So as you can see, it gives you kind of a progressively building up effect. You have influence. You can go ahead and spend those action tokens and get that many influence that you spent. So for example, if you spent 3, you get 3 influence tokens. There is a muster power. Muster allows you to add to your army strength when going into battle against the different kinds of enemies on the board. You spend those action tokens and you flip the first icon at the top, and the cost of the muster power is going to be down there in the gray. You're going to gain the influence that are actually on the flag, so in this case you'd gain 1 influence on that flag. You can also build. You take a look at your buildings, and on the left side in the yellow is going to be how much influence you get for building that building. On the right in the dark gray is going to be the cost for building that building. The right side of your board as a total is like a tech tree. And especially with your buildings, the more that you build, the more power you're going to add to whatever you can do on the in terms of your wedges. So for example, you can build a castle, and on the first one that'll give you an extra knight, but as you go along you can get an extra travel and so on and so forth. You can build churches that will give you more influence as you go. You can build farmhouses, which will give you more muster power and sometimes influence. You can build banks, which is something the Knights Templar was actually famous for doing, and that'll actually add to your building bonuses. So if you ever go to build, you can add these bonuses to your building abilities. Now, once you go all the way down and build all 4 buildings on a single row, you get some in-game scoring points as well. So wherever your knight is, and there's not an actual enemy in that particular territory, you can go ahead and build any building that you want to, and you can also take into account the building bonus locations. Some of these give you a discount on building, and they also give you extra influence for building that type of building in that location. Say you went into an area with an enemy, now you can actually do a crusade action. What you're going to do is look at the power track that represents that enemy token, and you're going to look at the amount of crusade power you're going to need to defeat that enemy. So in this case, it will be 3 against the Slavs. You spend 3 actions, taking into account any muster you might have, and you successfully defeat that enemy. You take that token into your possession because that's going to count as in-game scoring points. And now, if you so wanted to, you could also build on that location, but watch out. Other players may try to come in and build even while you're there, because you're not actually against each other. You're actually all just trying to race to the finish to get the most influence tokens. There's no actual direct combat. Now, when it comes to the Saracens, they're a little bit different. When you stop on their location, it's going to take 6 crusade power to beat them. You take that token, you can now do a free build action on this church, meaning you don't have to use your wedges, okay? It's just saying, hey, you can build a free church, or you can choose to take 3 points. Now, during setup, you would have put out a specific amount of influence tokens based on player count. Once all the influence tokens are gone, you go ahead and finish the round, and then prepare to tally up points. Now, you're going to tally up points according to what your board says, how much influence you have. You've got tiles out here that are going to give you extra points based on how many enemies you defeated, whether you did the most or the second most. And there are possibilities of ties, and the rules show you accordingly how to work that out. Person with the most influence at the end of the game is the winner.
Because that's the bottom line. Stone Cold said so.
When I first heard about this game, really the mechanics more so than the theme drew me over to it. You know, it is a controversial theme, let's just be honest. And the fact is, there's not going to be anybody that's truly settled on how that history went. There were a lot of atrocities committed on both sides, and this, even in the rule book, they kind of go into, hey, look, we're not here to highlight all the atrocities and all the crazy stuff that happened. Both sides had stuff that they did that were wrong. That's not the point of this game. Granted, they could have used a different theme, but this is the one they chose. So, but it is interesting. They did focus on other things that the Knights Templar and some other of the Holy Orders did, like setting up banks and things like that. So in some ways, it is thematic according to history. It just doesn't go into the more bloodier side of it. So that's, like I said, that's for other people to discuss. I'm not here to discuss it. I'm more here to discuss gameplay and was this fun? Did I enjoy it? Yes. Actually, even in spite of the theme, I thought it was very well done. I had a lot of fun with the rondel mechanic. I really, really enjoyed it. It's very much like a Mancala. You know, you take some actions. Once you use it, you go to the next wedge and wedge and wedge and wedge and keep going. And I did like the idea that the Holy Order of Knights changed the dynamic of the game up, giving you special abilities that were your own. That's something I love in any game, where I'm different than you, and you can do your own thing, and I'm going to do my own thing. And we're going for the same goals, but we might have different abilities that get us there in certain, maybe different ways. Now, I love the production quality. I thought the production quality overall was really good. I like the wood pieces. I heard there's a deluxe version of it with metal influence tokens and things like that. I do kind of wish, and I know this was deluxe, and I know this wasn't necessarily, but I do kind of wish they had the inlaid, the double boards, you know what I mean, with the indentions, where you could put the pie wedges in there to hold it a lot better, and I think they may have done that for the buildings as well. I really would have loved to have that. I think that it just, you know, because you hit the board and stuff kind of moves a little bit. You know, I had the same problem with Terraforming Mars, and that one desperately needed an indented board. Oh my gosh! But it didn't deter my enjoyment of the game. I thought the production quality overall was really good. Tasty Minstrel Games has really been impressing me with the games they've been putting out in terms of production quality. So it has a semblance of some engine building elements to it. The tech tree that allows you to continue building up your forces, continue building up your power power and allowing you to be able to do more as you go along. The more enemies you defeat, the more banks you put into place, castles you build. I really like the idea that there were discounts on the board that allowed you to build castles at a cheaper price, get more influence for it, or what have you. You know, I really like that. I also like the idea of the muster power, being able to build up your forces so the next time you fought, you were stronger. Any game that gives me a sense of progression, of getting stronger as I go and better and more efficient, is always fun for me. I like that in Scythe, and I love that in this. And I also like the idea of upgrading my power so that now, instead of just doing one action on my turn, I can, you know, facilitate my power between two actions. So, for example, if I wanted to travel, I could and go crusade, I can travel and then crusade on the same turn instead of having to wait for everybody else's turn to do the crusade part after my travel. And all of these things that worked out to make a very well-oiled machine of a game that it gives you a satisfying element at the end of it. You know, you feel like you accomplished something, at least in creating and upgrading your Holy Order of Knights. This game was actually very, very easy to get into. Once you kind of figured your player board out, you're up and running in 5 minutes. It's not hard. And because of this simplicity in the game, it also helps to lend it to be a lot quicker, right? Because everybody's going, okay, I'm going to take my turn. I know how quick I need to be and go. Now, you may have a little bit of analysis paralysis depending on people who have a hard time maybe thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead. But in general, the game moved at a snappy, quick pace. Everybody, once they figured things out and they kind of had an idea of what their strategy was going to be, and they have to have a little bit of tactical stuff in there as well, because sometimes people will come in and you might have crusaded someone, and if you didn't have that double action to go ahead and then build something, somebody might come in and actually build in front of you. So there's some tactics to also to be involved in that. But we were up and running very quick, and I'll tell you this, everybody at the table really enjoyed this game. There was actually one guy at the table that actually got up and started looking on Amazon going, all right, I want to see if I can order this thing, right? Just started getting his phone out and going for it. You know, after the first time we played, they all wanted to play it immediately right after, and that is the mark of a great game. I played it at 2-player and 4-player. I did not get to play 3. Now, the 2-player was fun. What did I prefer, though? I did prefer it with a higher player count. For one thing, there's less interaction in the 2-player. It's kind of like you're isolated in some respects, right? And you're kind of going out and doing your own thing. Now, unless somebody wants to swoop in behind you and take a spot you just crusaded, you know, that's possible. But in a 4-player game, that's going to happen more often. I felt like the game gelled a bit better at 4 players. I think a higher player count really does this game justice. Now, were there any negatives I had about the game? I think it's going to depend on the player, honestly. If you don't like a little bit of cutthroat interaction, what I mean is that same thing I was mentioning before, where you go in and you crusade a spot and you're getting ready to build, and somebody comes in and swoops in and does that instead of you, or crusades, you know, after you've traveled to a spot. That is definitely a possibility, especially if people want to play cutthroat. It is possible. And again, when you're playing, you do get a sense of you're doing kind of a solo game every now and again, right? You kind of have that feeling until you run into each other on the track, because you're not really competing in a sense of actions against each other. You're not fighting each other. You're just trying to win the race, because it's really a race game. And so that's what the feeling is going to feel like for you. Now, to a certain extent, I also feel that the theme is kind of marginally there. It's a little bit abstracted out, right? There's not the blood and guts and gore and serious fighting that you'd think being a game like this. You really just land on a spot, compare power, win, or or don't win. You know what I mean? It's your planning to get up to that point. It's a good game. It's one I would like to actually hit my table more often. I would love to play this several more times, to be honest with you. I'd probably give this about a 7.5 out of 10. If anything you saw here sounded fun to you, definitely check it out. If you like anything that has to do with a little bit of engine building, some Rondel Mancala mechanics, and in a sense some area control to a certain extent, right? I think you should check this one out, definitely. This is definitely one I want to keep pulling out. So anyway, thank you so much for watching Dice Odyssey videos. I'm Kaz. Please follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And again, thank you so much. You have a blessed day, and game away.